Tim.
What's going on?
How you doing, buddy?
Good.
Yeah.
Keep it safe today?
Every day.
That's what I like to hear.
Everybody healthy and happy?
Yes, sir.
Good.
So far, we've avoided the boogly flu.
Down here.
I'm still waiting for things to open up so we can get your little brother to come buy us lunch.
He just called me like 5 minutes ago.
Did he really?
Yeah, but he ain't gonna buy
Tony, are you all set?
That's not happening. Already?
Okay.
My guess is he's sitting in that parking
We're
lot
waiting for the
already.
chief.
Yeah.
Is that right, Commander? Pardon me? Yeah. That's the stuff on the, okay.
What's that? Your lap will work.
Okay, Chief Winslow, you're up.
All right. Shall we wait for everybody? We're ready to go.
Ready to go.
Good evening. Thanks for having us today. I'm Chief Winslow with the Springfield Police Department. The first slide you'll see is our department structure. Nothing has changed from last year. The second slide is our workforce. As you'll see, we're still at 250 sworn officers, but I do want to point out in your green sheets, you'll see that we're only funded for 240.5. That being that we are working on a 20-person hiring freeze until the end of the first half of the fiscal year. This is a continuation of what we agreed to last September to try to avoid layoffs and furloughs. Currently, we are sitting on 23 openings for sworn positions. We average between 10 people per day off for workers' comp, COVID, et cetera, as well as 4 to 5 officers that are currently assigned to the military for lengths of a year or more. So again, you can see we are running below. With that said, our current makeup of our department is 74% white male, 8.8% black male, 3.1% Hispanic male, 0.09 Asian male, 12.3% white female, 0.09% black female. Our civilian staffing, we're still staffed for 31 again this year. Currently, we are sitting on 3 openings. We've been doing this to try to save some lapse funds to help. We do anticipate filling those positions, but we are currently sitting on them again to help save some funding. We are in the process of filling one of those positions as we speak, though. The next slide is our workload and call service. As you'll see, you see a pretty drastic reduction this year, down to 110,000 calls for service. We believe that's the COVID impact on us. Obviously, when we started the year with COVID, we had to take some different precautions to how we respond to calls for service. A lot of calls for service are being routed to the desk. Even still today, officers are calling ahead of time to try to get as much information via phone so they can limit their contact with people. Additionally, when COVID first kicked off, we limited our traffic stops and to just basically those that we had to do that were such egregious amounts. But obviously, with the complaints that we've received over the year from the citizens as well as the members of this council, we have stepped up our traffic enforcement again, so I anticipate those numbers returning to a norm of probably 125,000 a year next year. The next slide is our Part 1 index crimes. As you can see, we've been on a nice decline for the last decade. Our Part 1 index crimes have reduced 38.2% since 2010. This year, preliminary, we are down 7% for our Part 1 index crimes compared to last year. Department structure, again, nothing's changed. It's our operation division that contains basically our uniforms, such as the easiest way to explain it to people, but these are all the specialty units that still apply under there. The next slide is our criminal investigation divisions. Typically, we refer to it as the Detective Bureau. Nothing's changed there as well. Last year, 1,001 cases were assigned, 950 cases were closed, 562 of those resulting in arrest. The next slide is our Admin Services Division. Again, nothing's changed there. That's our emergency communications, our records, our evidence, our training academy, fiscal, et cetera. The next slide is budgeted funds. The thing to point out here is the red lettering. These are all restricted funds that have to be used for certain things, such as anything that has to do with asset forfeiture or state drug forfeiture. It has to go back into fighting drugs, et cetera. The next slide is our FY22 budget, just a graph of all of our funds. You'll see that 8.8 million of that is our operating lines. However, EMRG makes up 50% of that. And EMRG services the entire city, not just the police department. They deal with basically communications, the Zooms that we've all had to adapt to, cameras, building security, et cetera. The next slide is our budget across all cost centers. The next one is our budget across the corporate fund. In the corporate fund, as you can see, under contractual services, we have an increase of 9.24%. In that, basically, the large cost of that is our increased dispatch fees of $275,000. You'll see that in the EMRG line 1232. They did use $75,000 of the fund balance to bring that down, but it's still, our increase was $275,000, which is pretty high. The next thing I'd like to point your attention to is the equipment line is up $124,000. If you look in the OPS 1507 line or POPR 1507 line, what you'll see is the shot spotter money's added there, as well as $76,000 for new gas masks that are end of life. The other large increase that you see there will be in EDP. If you refer to POPR 1605, you'll see that's our Axon contract. Body camera contract is still in its final stages of being negotiated. We anticipate our cost increasing to $340,000 per year. What this does is basically is a new 5-year contract for $1.7 million. It's our body cameras, it's our in-car cameras that we only have 5 of, it's also our interview rooms. But the big change in this, since Axon is also the distributor of our tasers, is our tasers. It's been our goal forever to put a taser on every uniformed officer that responds to a call for service, which is 170 officers. Typically, we only have about 65 people with tasers. In the day and age that we are in law enforcement, we have to get tasers on everybody. We have to have that ability to have less lethal options for our officers. So by combining all the contracts into one master contract, that was our best deal for savings. And again, this hasn't been finalized yet, but we anticipate that costing about $340,000 per year over a 5-year life of the contract. The other large increase is under operations and automotive equipment. That's the central garage. That's what it costs to keep our cars up and going, and you'll see that increase there. But if you look across the whole corporate fund, there's a 2.33% increase, which is pretty much flat. Again, just to kind of highlight what I said a minute ago about some of the things, as you see, there's an increase in our personal services just for natural growth and passive growth. The highlights we just talked about. What we didn't talk about is that there's $48,000 in there for an upgrade at our academy for the women's restroom. Currently, we only have 1 restroom for the women. Obviously, I have 30 female officers. We have to expand that to try to make it better. So we're trying to add 1 additional bathroom under the footprint of the current building. We ran into some asbestos, so there's going to be a little bit more of a cost to that, but we anticipate that to be about $48K. Additional $56,000 for the downtown camera expansion. This will now give us cameras along the 2nd Street corridor. For years, we've been trying to negotiate with the state to see if the state was going to put cameras around the Capitol complex. And we're to the point now that we can't wait any longer. So this now will take in the 2nd Street corridor as well as replace a camera at 5th and Capitol. Accomplishments for the year, the implementation of our ShotSpotter 9 program. We navigated through COVID. Again, we had to come up with new operating procedures on how to do things, the health and safety of our officers, and we've been pretty effective about keeping officers safe. Community reinvestment and outreach. While COVID has limited that, we were still able to start a new program called Meet and Greet, Polar Patrol, and Operation Juice Box. Leadership and staff development. We sent 4 lieutenants to Northwestern School of Staff and Command for succession planning, as well as 5 new sergeants and 3 additional sergeants to do 2 different classes, 1 to Northwestern and 1 to Gillespie for first-line supervisor training. We continued the development of our wellness program, taking a holistic approach. We started a mentor program for new hires. That way when officers come into our department, or maybe even new to our community, they're assigned a mentor from day 1 to kind of walk them through the process, be that person there that when they need somebody to turn to, they got a voice, an ear that's not their field training officer, not their sergeant, somebody they can just kind of bounce ideas off of. Additionally, in that wellness program, we started the Government Smart Dollar Financial Planning Program for all officers. We worked with City Council on local police reform ordinance. We embraced law enforcement best practices through policy and procedure updates and transparency as a result of the nationwide and statewide law enforcement reform. We implemented e-crash. We had full implementation of our Safe Passage program to help those suffering from addiction. Our successful transition to neighbors, we're ready to go. It had to be done by January 1st of 2021. We're just waiting for the state to tell us when to pull the trigger on that. Continuing emphasis on our community policing initiatives and recruiting and diversification of the workforce. We've continued to diversify our department with what little bit of hiring we had done last year. Our goals going to FY22. What you'll see first off is the new homeless focused deterrence case manager social worker position. We had that in the budget last year, but due to COVID and uncertainty with the budget, we did not fill that position. Our hope is to go ahead and fill that position shortly after the new fiscal year. Continue and complete our iLEAP accreditation process. That should be done by early summer. Reestablish our focused deterrence program post-COVID-19. We haven't done a call-in this year. We've had to really modify how we're doing it, and I'll be frank, it just hasn't been as successful as we would like it to be. The fact is we haven't been able to do a call-in because of COVID-19. We believe if we get a little bit further down the vaccination road, we can get back to this. Again, continue with our leadership and staff development for succession planning. We plan to move forward, send in some additional lieutenants to training, as well as sergeants. We're going to monitor and meet our statewide free-form mandates that are coming. Continue with our crime reduction effort through data-driven policing initiatives, such as our SpringStat program. Enhance community focus on crime prevention and combating crimes through community partnership and collaboration. The last slide I would like to draw your attention to is House Bill 3653 awareness. This is nothing that we need this year, at least not yet. We are still going through this 800-page mandate. We're still trying to figure out what's going to be in there. Obviously, the governor has not signed it yet. But as of right now, it says that all law enforcement officers have to have a body-worn camera. They don't make exceptions for administrative officers, people assigned to administrative duties. Right now, we have 170 body-worn cameras. The contract I quoted you earlier is for 170 body-worn cameras. If I have to buy an additional 80 cameras, we estimate that cost and associated fees with it to be between $100,000 to $110,000 per year. Biannual officer psych evaluation, somewhere around $100,000 per year. We would do half one year, half the next year is how that would work. $100K for additional training mandates. Again, we're waiting on final language and implementation dates for these requirements, and we're still not through the entire bill yet. At this point in time, I would open up to questions.
Thank you, Chief. We'll do things a little bit differently this time. For those of you who are not in the chamber, does anybody have a question of the Chief? Alderwoman DeCenzo.
Thank you, Chair. Chief, as you know, there's been a lot of activity in Ward 6 as of late, a rolling shootout down Ash last week. Over the weekend, there was something down MacArthur and Wabash. So it's very close to residential neighborhoods. I know this has been a problem in other areas of the city for quite a long time, but it's still pretty new to this area of the city. So, you know, I just want to know if there's a plan here, because I feel like we are just kind of flying blind, and that I don't have answers for people when they ask me, you know, what is the city doing to stop this? What can we do to stop this? Where are we going? And I don't have answers for anybody. So we need some answers.
Obviously, with our focused deterrence program, we try to concentrate on gun violence. Again, we haven't been able to do any call-ins. To go along with that, you know, misdemeanor arrests that were normally taken before are not going to the jail because of COVID-19. Additionally, bonds haven't been as high because of the fact that they're trying to keep people out of the jail. So there's several reasons they're going to play into it, but obviously our plan is to get back to our focused deterrence program, to concentrate on our known shooters and to address them. The other part of that plan is to work with the landlords. Obviously, people are relocating to different parts of town. We understand that. Working with those apartment managers to make sure that we have some communication with our neighborhood police officers to identify people so they don't move from one apartment complex across the street to the other apartment complex. Again, as you look around the country, everybody has seen an increase in gun violence. And while we've seen that increase here this year, it's not to the extent that other communities have seen, whether that be our comparables such as Rockford and Peoria, Decatur, whatever, you know. So we are seeing it. We're not immune from it. We're out there addressing it. The other big issue we got to talk about here is that the ability to pursue people who are committing violence, you know. We have to weigh that risk to our community. Our officers were involved in chasing a shots fired call just last night. I shouldn't say last night, the night before, I believe it was, where basically our lieutenant canceled it because we had a plate number on the car. The car came back out of another community in central Illinois, and we were chasing that car at an excessive rate of, I won't say excessive, but a very fast rate of speed, and it just wasn't worth the risk to the rest of our community. And when we look at the House Bill 5363, or 3653, there's additional restrictions put on law enforcement about pursuing people if you can identify them later on, so in the force that's allowed to be used there. So that's one of our concerns as we move forward as well. But again, we have to weigh that. I personally witnessed our officers about a month and a half ago chase a guy down MacArthur Boulevard. The car was doing in excess of 100 miles an hour as it passed me at Ash and MacArthur, blowing every light there was, and our officers did the right thing. They canceled. They were coming up upon Wabash. The traffic was heavy, and they canceled before that gentleman plowed into some innocent family. Would we like to got that shooter and that gun? Absolutely. But we know that a lot of people understand that they're going to run no matter what. So it's the risk that officers have to make out there every day. I'm not going to second guess them. They're the ones out there. We train them to use their best judgment. If they feel they can pursue, then we'll let them pursue. If they feel that they should back off, we'll let them back off. Again, what other restrictions placed on us as we move forward, we'll learn those as we go forward.
Okay, Alderwoman DeCenzo, anything else for the chief?
That doesn't really answer my question. My question is, what do we tell our constituents who are scared? And, luckily it's 0 degrees, or it was very cold when this happened. So it's not like there were a bunch of people walking around. But, what do we tell someone when I start getting calls at 9 o'clock on a Thursday night? What should my response be? Because I don't know what to say.
Well, I would ask that if they have any information about any crime to report it to dispatch or call 911 immediately, especially on a violent crime like this. If they don't feel comfortable there, at least call Crime Stoppers. Give it the information. No matter how minute you think it might be the difference. The people we are dealing with, victims are not being cooperative when it comes to shooting. When you're talking about gang violence back and forth, which is what I'm talking about here, you're talking about people who aren't going to come forward and they're not going to testify against other people. We're going to have to build these cases on our own. They're uncooperative victims. Additionally, with that, anything they see at all would be helpful. We are out there patrolling. If I could hire my additional 20 officers today, I would hire them as soon as possible. If the council wants to give me the authority to go ahead and fill those positions immediately, I'll be more than happy to do that. Again, we're doing everything that we can right now to combat this. I would say no matter or issue is too small to report. Be aware of what's going on in your neighborhood, what's out of the ordinary, what's new. Because what we have going on right now is just people that, when they see each other, they're being reckless and they're doing stupid stuff, and we're trying to address it. But unfortunately, we can't be everywhere every minute of the day. We're doing our best that we can. We know with the community's help, that could be a force multiplier to help us out there to try to address these situations. We also need landlords to realize that when we come to you with an issue or a problem, please work with my neighborhood police officers. When I identify the problem, work with them to curtail the problem and deal with it. But that's what we're trying to do out there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Anybody else on the phone or on Zoom? Alderwoman Turner and then Alderwoman Conley.
Thank you very much for the budget presentation. There are a lot of things in here that I'm totally in agreement with, and I think that they have made a big difference in my community, and I'm happy about that. I understand, though, what Alderwoman DeCenzo is saying. I've been saying for a long time that, as people move and relocate, then, they take their issues and their problems with them. So, unfortunately, you guys are now sharing the wealth. So, but this is my 10th budget that I've sat through, and I make the same comment. I've made the same comment for 10 years. A diverse workforce benefits the department as well as the city. And I have to tell you that you've done a really good job of working to diversify your department, your officers, the officers that are on the street that have the first line of contact with citizens. But we still, I will tell you, I know I can't see it now because it's COVID, but if we were all in the chambers, I would see a table with 5 white guys in white shirts. And we really have to do what we can to change that. It's not a good optic for the city, and it's not a good it's not a good look for the department. And I know that, and you and I have talked about this many times, and I understand that there are specific requirements and, and all of these kinds of things, but I really do think that, and I'm not suggesting that officers get promoted just because we want a different look. I'm not suggesting any of that because it goes without saying that we want quality, qualified officers as well as command staff. But I just think that we need to do a better job of reaching out to officers that may be on a track for administration. We need to do a better job of mentoring them and, showing people that there is a path. So I'm not asking a question I don't even want to answer, but I just want that out there that we really do have to do a better job of diversifying our command staff because, again, I think that it benefits the department and it benefits the city.
Your point's well taken. Obviously, we have tried and continue to try. We just gave our promotional exams, and we personally reached out to those minorities who were eligible to see if they were going to take it. Some said they were. I'm not exactly sure who did and who didn't take it, but it takes time. You got to remember, I think when I became chief, we had 6 minorities, 6 African-American officers. I have to go back and look. Maybe there was 8. I don't know. We've done a good job, but it takes time. You have to have 8 years on to take the sergeant's test, and you have time on to take the lieutenant's test. And then once you're a lieutenant, you can be in the command staff and be eligible for the command staff. So again, we'll get there. I'm confident we'll get there, and I'm confident in the quality of the young men and women that we have in our department, that their future is very bright. That mentorship program we talk about also is something we constantly try to look at and try to do as we bring people up through the ranks and mentor them as well. So I am confident that someday we will get there. It's not going to be an overnight thing, but we will get there. And then, again, I'll be frank, there's not a lot of there's not a lot of motivation, I shouldn't say, there's not a lot of incentive to be a lieutenant and lead the union when my lieutenants are making $15,000 to $20,000 more than my command staff. So I'll leave it at that. When they're losing that kind of money, to get them to leave the union to come into the non-union and take that kind of work all the hours and not get paid for them and watch your subordinates make that much more money than you, there's not a lot of incentive. So we got to fix that problem as well as we move forward.
Alderwoman
I
Turner.
do want to commend you on the mentorship program and those things that you put in place. That's very commendable.
Thank you, ma'am.
Alderwoman Conley.
Thank you, Chair. Chief, a quick question. Obviously, last year I had concerns about the status of your officers' cars. I didn't see, and it may be that my eyes got tired reading through the little notes, but I didn't see that you're including money this year for new car purchases. Is that correct?
That is correct. We had a conversation with Mr. McCarty, and they're talking about going out for another capital loan, and we're going to give him a list of the needs that include cars for that.
And how many vehicles are you looking at with that request?
I don't have that information from him, but we could use as many as you're willing to give us.
And I would like to see you get as many as you need, so I appreciate that. And then you're talking about your 20 officers short, so do you have a plan for, what's the plan for filling those spots?
We are currently 23 officers short. I anticipate another 4 to 5 retirements in March. I anticipate another 5 to 6 in June. So you see the numbers we're looking up against here.
Yep.
We just got done with our first Band 1 and Band 2 rankings for the current list, as well as a lateral entry. We're going to go down to Band 3 interviews, I think, here in a couple weeks. The issue we got right now is the academies are all closed because of COVID. When they reopen, they normally staff 65 to 70 officers per class. There's been talk that might get cut in half because of COVID. So we're going to have to look at this. Right now, we currently have 20 slots, I believe, reserved for the August class. There may be an additional class in July, and they may split our manning in between the two, but our plan is to hire a minimum of 20 in the fall. The agreement I had with the mayor and Mr. McCarty as far as trying to get the budget in whack when we were first tasked last summer with trying to make sure because of the COVID impact, not knowing exactly what it was going to look like, was to hire 20 in September, carry the rest till January, hire half of those in January, and then if the budget was good, hire them all, but if not, hire half in January, and then hire the other half the first class after the next fiscal year. So that would get us back to full staffing. Obviously, if we can speed that up because of the fiscal condition of the city looks better, then we'll be more than happy to speed that up. But it's going to be a busy summer when we're running that low, and then you take all your people who are gone on any daily basis for injuries, workers' comp, military leave. Like I said, I think I got 5 that are gone for over a year, a couple that are leaving here soon. That gives us a 5 total, I believe. So when you look at all that, we're running 15% below our manpower right now. That number easily will drop down, I think, to about 20% low when we finally get there, or close to that. Maybe not quite 20%, but it'll be real close.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to see that your numbers go up and for your staffing, and certainly maintain the level of training that you've been giving to support your officers, so that we, continue to have a high level of service.
I would like to add one thing to that, if I could, real fast. AC Scarlett just brought up a good point. Due to the good cooperation with the PBPA, we were able to move to 12-hour days effective January 1st of this year. While that's a sacrifice on everybody and an adjustment on everybody, we were able to work out some an agreeable mutual understanding that basically allows us to put officers on 12-hour days to try to increase our manpower during the busiest times of days because of that being short. So we've been over backwards to try to do our part at the police department with this budget, and couldn't do it without the work of President Don Edwards and the PBBA board agreeing to help us get there. But it's going to be tough going into the summer, no doubt about it.
I'm sure it is. And I just, again, I appreciate your efforts and the efforts of your officers. I'm going to echo Alderwoman DeCenso. I'm hearing Ward 8 has seen an increase in shootings in ways that are, certainly startling and upsetting a lot of people. I'm very upset by it, with any part of the town where we have this level of gun violence. And so certainly anything you can do to be creative with that. I very much appreciate the efforts of our neighborhood officer. He has been very wonderful. I mean, just wonderful to reach out to, very accessible, very helpful in getting information. So, if we need more officers and we can start moving forward in that plan, I would certainly like to see that happen.
I appreciate that.
Any other alderman that's on the Zoom call? Alderman McMillan. You're muted. There you go.
First of all, just a point of information. I see 4 alderpersons participating by video. Are there any other alderpersons besides yourself, Mr. Chair, in the chambers right now?
Yes, there are 4 others. 1, 2, 5, and 10, including myself.
Is anyone not here?
I believe everybody is here except maybe Alderman Fulgenzi. I don't see him on the call.
Okay, thank you. I see our chief is in a conversation at the moment. Chief, question, that shift to 12-hour days, that was effective January 1, is that correct?
That is correct, sir. January 2nd.
January 2nd.
Yes, sir.
And in the past, we've had 10-hour days, is that correct?
No, we run a 5, 3, and 9-hour for our operations folks, and everybody else is on a 8-hour day, 5-day work week.
Could you go over that again?
Our operations people who switched to the 12-hour day used to be on a 5 on, 3 off, 9-hour day, sir.
Okay, so our operational people, if they're doing 12-hour days, does that mean, could you give the day rotation then?
Oh, I don't have that in front of me. It rotates, but basically I believe it's 2 on, 2 off, 3 on, 2 off, 3 on, 3 off, I believe, but don't quote me on that. Is that accurate, fellas?
They work 7 days out of every 14.
They work 7 days out of every 14 on the 12-hour rotation.
I think that that's a really major, significant change, and I don't recall the council being advised of that.
That is correct. We are doing a pilot change. It's a 6-month pilot to see if this helps with our manpower. If not, we'll probably revert back to what we were or look at a different schedule.
Well, I would say this, Chief. That's a very major, significant change in operations, and I'm frankly disappointed that the command staff felt it unnecessary to describe that change to the city council and to advise us of the merits and the positives and the negatives of that kind of a change. So essentially, our operational staff are working 7 out of 14 days. It works out to every other day. There are a lot of repercussions to that. Fatigue can set in and so forth on a 12-hour day. Okay, moving along, Chief, we've got, could you take a look at the blue sheet? There's one blue sheet for every department. It's called the Report 9S. And the blue sheet basically breaks down agency summary by major object. And one of the major objects is debt service. And the debt service for the police department is $470,000. And I couldn't find where that debt service was located in the white sheets.
I don't have that blue sheet with me, sir, but that is our third year of our radio contracts. We're in our third year of that contract for the radio upgrades. And I do believe they are in there under EMRG. So after this year, there won't be any others. The last year of that service.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, for those of you keeping track at home, Mayor Langfelder is also present in the council chamber. Alderman Hanauer.
Thank you. Chief, thank you for your presentation. I saw a couple things. The body cam and car cam line was up to 525K from 310. Is that just software, or is that also hardware as well?
That's everything. So when we started the body worn cameras back 5 years ago,
Right.
or soon to be 5 years ago, we were told that basically everybody would get so much storage a year. They lived up to that contract, but the reality is we were going way over that storage. This moves us to an unlimited storage. There's also additional costs for the new body cameras. It's a supply and demand thing, and as more and more departments switch to them, the costs are going up there. Actually, to go along with that is the tasers. Again, the tasers contract, they're going to a subscription-based program. Right now, I think we have 65 tasers on officers. That puts a taser on every officer out there. So those are the biggest drivers in that contract going up. We try to offset that cost as much as possible by reducing other things, but that's the major driver in those lines.
How long do we have to keep all our, I guess, all our body cam and car cam video? I mean, a lot of it is just, I mean, it's a lot.
The law
of
lays
wasted,
out, some of it just falls off after so many, like 3 months or 120 days, some of it falls off. But there's others, like if it's a crime scene, it could be there forever until after a judge gives you permission to destroy it. So the storage is going to continue to go. That's one of the things that we had talked about, with some of the legislators about. As I said before, I'm a strong supporter and proponent of body cameras, but we need to look at some of the things that reduce the burdens and the cost on cities. And that's one of the things we talked about is, can we reduce some of those retention requirements? We made no headway so far. We're not giving up on that, but that's the major driver in that. And again, like I said, just to throw it out there, in the future, if they require all law enforcement officers to wear it, people like myself who sits in an office 95% of the time will be wearing a body-worn camera, which doesn't make any sense. So any help you guys can help us out at the legislature, we would greatly appreciate that to try to reduce those costs.
Yeah, that was my concern when we initially, and I'm a big proponent of the body cams. I think we've seen how they've helped us. It's shown both sides how the officers are treated, and in some cases the negative side of how some of our officers have treated people, which you've dealt with swiftly and very the way it should have been dealt with. So my concern was how much as we have to keep storing things. It's no different than the online storage for anything. That's where they get you on your fees, right? I just saw that number raise, and I was concerned about that. The other question I have is the shot spotter. We're starting to see things move throughout the city. Have we gotten to a point with shot spotter to where it's in an area, everybody knows where it's at, so they're going to other parts of the city?
No, I don't think that's the issue because, granted, this is the first year, we're not even a full year into shot spotter, but we're alarmed and disturbed by as many reported shots fired we are getting and how many confirmed shots fired we are getting right now in the targeted area. I think what you have is you have people relocating to different areas of town and living in different areas of town. And you just have people who, when they see each other, they roll up, they see each other, and if it's a rival that they've had a beef with, they've got no value for life, no respect for safety, and they're doing stupid stuff. But as far as the shot spotters, and I'll be giving you guys an update on last year's crime. Like I said, overall, we're down 7%. But we'll be giving you an update here in the next couple of weeks with our year-end stats. And with that said, the confirmed shots fired are more than doubled. They might even be triple what we had last year. That's
How's
what we're
that
looking at.
led to arrest?
I'd have to pull that information. We have had some good, valuable arrests out of it. But people aren't calling. And the shot spotter has identified that.
Okay.
We will get reports of shot spotter alert of 10 to 12 rounds and 0 phone calls. And while shot spotter directs it to the right place, the shot spotter can't tell me what the car looked like.
Yeah.
It can't tell me what the suspect looked like. It can't tell me what the victim looks like. If nobody sticks around, yeah, we're there. We're recovering casings, and we're matching casings through our kniving system. But we have to, and hopefully later on we find a gun that matches that, and hopefully we find a person attached to that gun. But it's a battle. It's a battle. When they changed the law a few years ago, allowing basically the illegal carrying of a weapon to be a misdemeanor and probationable, it has hurt us a little bit, No longer if you get caught with a gun, are you going to go sit in the county for 30 days or longer? It's just not that way. And as we move forward with what's coming down the pipeline, I think we're going to have our hands full. I think that our community, once they realize everything that we're going to look at, and hopefully, again, I'm all for reform. I support a lot of quality reforms, but there's certain things that I have a problem with when we let violent offenders or violent suspects out. I have a problem with that. Personally, I don't think anybody that shoots at somebody should get a bond. I don't care what race you are. I don't care what sex or gender you are. If you're willing to try to take somebody's life or be reckless enough to take somebody's life, you shouldn't get a bond no matter who you are. That's my personal opinion there. Sorry about that.
The only other thing I have is I've seen where some communities around, and I want to say, I'm not sure if it's Jacksonville or South Jacksonville or whatever, but they've actually said that if you're a police officer in another town and you want to come in and join their force, they're doing it where they just go through a short field training situation. Is that something that we do?
Yeah, we have a lateral program as well.
Okay, good.
We've had one for several years. Truth be told is that, we have high standards. I'm bringing you in at 3-year officer pay. So there's a testing process that you have to meet. We did convert it to where you can come into 18 months at a lower pay for 18-month pay. But there's just not a lot of people who want to be police officers right now. One of the biggest things we're going to have a problem with is retention and recruitment as we move forward. We saw that last year when we postponed our test from June to September. We had over 500 and some odd applicants, say like 580 or something. It's all said and done when we actually gave the test in September. Now that was post a lot of stuff that was going on in our country. I think we had 250 show up, 260 somewhere there. We got a final list of right around 95 or so as we're going through. How many of those we keep through and they make it through the rest of the process between the backgrounds and meeting our high standards, because we're not going to lower our standards to get people. I'll retest before I do that. We will keep the highest standards, but how many we get out of that? To hire 20, typically it's about 3 people for every one that you want to get. So again, my first 2 bands, initially I think I had 22 people, 17 showed up, and we're in direct competition with our comparable cities for that. And my starting salary is about $10,000 to $12,000 less than most of my comparable cities.
And one other, you forgot one big accomplishment this year. You've had Tom Chi put up with all of us trying to get us on Zoom, and that might have been your biggest accomplishment of the year, is getting. He hasn't been real good with Red Path yet, but he's getting there.
Don't start, Ralph.
Tom does an excellent job for the city.
Chief, you mentioned in your presentation earlier that you talked about the Part 1 index crimes. What are Part 1 index crimes for those in?
Yeah, those are homicides, aggravated assaults and batteries, sexual assaults, burglaries, sex offenses, rape, forcible rape, I should say.
So nothing good. You know, Chief, I noticed that the numbers were down for those crimes, which is, of course, what we all want. But they also seemed that they corresponded with the head count. Why would that be?
Well, what you're seeing there, obviously, again, with COVID this year, I will tell you that
even if you excluded this last calendar year, 2020, the numbers, I mean, it corresponded with, and that surprised me.
that's the hard work of the men and women and the community. The community we have built some relationship with the community where more and more people are coming forward. We still have to face that. I'm fearful of coming forward, and I'll give you the information, but I ain't going to testify. I'm not going to give you my name because I don't want to be involved. I'm scared I got to live here. We face that every day, and that is a real problem for people, you know, and they do. We're not like a lot of states that have a relocation fund or a witness protection fund where we can help people out. You know, we got limited funds where we can get somebody maybe out of town, help them get out of town to a safer place. But as far as relocating them, buying them out of their lease and all that, we just don't have that. But again, you know, it comes down to the hard work of the men and women of the Springfield Police Department, plus the community partnerships and community help. They will come forward. And a lot of times, we're thankful they point us in the right direction, a lot of times. Would it be better if they were able to testify and give, yes, but at least they point us in the right direction. Then we have to try to build the case with other evidence to corroborate what they told us. So that's just part of the policing as a whole. This year, like I said, you'll see that there's a 7% drop overall. I was looking at the stats earlier today. There's actually an increase, though, for crimes against persons this year. And it's quite considerable. That's just, if my memory serves me right, and we'll get into this in a couple weeks, I don't want to ruin it. But it's about 20% or 21%, I think. But property crimes are way down. A lot of times the property crimes are down because people are home right now. Now, as many houses are getting burglarized because people are home. People are starting to heed advice. Don't leave your cars running this time of year with the doors unlocked to warm up. They're heeding advice to take your keys and your fobs with you. So we're seeing some of that. But our aggravated batteries and aggravated assaults, not to ruin the presentation, is what's really driving it. And I sent you guys something here back, I think, the mid part of December about the shots fired as well as the shooting victims. And we did finish up higher than last year. Not a huge increase, but still an increase. And it's an increase that we're not proud of, that we're going to try to drive down as every chief across the country is battling right now.
Well, Chief, we look forward to that presentation. And again, probably should have started out by saying we all, and I can speak for everybody on this one, I know, we all appreciate the hard work of the men and women of the department. It's not an easy job, and we just appreciate all that's done. Alderman Redpath.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, I would commend you. Your top skill, don't take this as offense, take it as a compliment. Your community relations skills have kept us out of a lot of jams this year, and I want to commend you on that. I know how tough it is for recruitment. As when I was with the Conservation Police, we are always competing against everybody for minority participation and trying to put a diverse police department together. That's a big deal for all of us. You were talking about earlier about being able to put your team, put more officers on the street if you were able to hire now. Are you waiting for the budget session to be over before you make that move?
Our agreement was basically in the budget. That's why you see there's only 240.5 positions funded, was to keep those openings until halfway through the fiscal year. But that was for, like you said, 19.5 positions or 20 positions. We do have 23 openings right now. I do anticipate some more, but right now I can't get an academy class.
That was my next question. Yes. And then I know that's going to be even harder to do than we did before because obviously Decatur's a primary academy class operators at this time, right?
That is correct, sir.
And we don't have a Champaign class anymore that we used to have?
No, there still is a Champaign class. We've been going to Macon County Law Enforcement Training Center for the last probably 4 years now. They treat us well over there. They give us priority for getting in there. Not to say that in the past we have used Champaign. We used Illinois State Police quite frequently. We switched to Macon when the state police went into their freeze where they didn't run classes for a year.
Right.
And we were satisfied and extremely happy with what we were seeing at Macon County, so we've stayed there. Again, I anticipate that they'll take care of our people. We may have to break them in 2 classes. And if there's a chance to get additional bodies, they'll get them for us. I'm confident in Tad and Tom over there that they will take care of us and help us get through. And again, that's kind of where we're at with that right now. Hopefully the COVID comes through and they figure out how they're going to do this going forward. And if they give us a class a little bit earlier, we would like to hire a few earlier. We're going to offer the lateral test again in the spring, probably April. We just gave it. We had 4 applicants, 1 showed up. So that 1 person did pass everything so far. He's got to finish it out. So there's 1 potential hire without having to go to the academy. I don't know if anybody in bands 1, 2, or 3 are already pre-certified, but if they are certified, we will send them straight to the field training program. We just started that here about a year ago. We tried that. Our policy in the past was that if you hadn't been to a full-time academy, we would send you back. But we did send the last 2 people straight to the streets who had been to the part-time and the transition course, and they've done very well. Perfect. So, so that's kind of what we're doing, trying to speed that process up some. But again, we hired at 20 and say it's August. They're no good till next June.
Right.
For us. They're just no good. They have to go through the whole academy, the FTO program, et cetera. So I'm hoping in the spring lateral program that we reached out to the ones who didn't show to find out why. I know 1 was coming from New York City, so that might be part of the reason there. But hopefully we can get a few more of those laterals in through the program and convince them that, Springfield, Illinois is a great place to live, a great place to raise a family, and it's a cheaper cost of living than a lot of the East Coast and West Coast locations. So.
And I want to tell you another thing. I commend you for your operational adjustment that you had to make. We both know that times get tough and you have to make moves sometimes pretty quickly. We do like to be informed at the City Council how those things are going. It helps us to be able to communicate that to our constituents. But that's exactly what you needed to do to move to the 12-hour shifts. I commend you for that. I want to tell you another thing. I am an advocate also, as Alderman Hanauer, of the body cams. I think that is probably drove our liability down because we were able to hold people accountable, not only on our side, but the other side too. We want to show people what officers have to go through every time they go to a call, but also it also gives us an opportunity to identify people who do not need to be out there. And you've dealt with that very swiftly and very appropriately, so I want to commend you on that. Just keep up the good work, and I support you, and I know the City Council supports you, and you guys are doing a good job at a tough time, so thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
Any other alderman or alderwoman have any questions of the chief? Okay, hearing none. Chief, yes?
Yeah, I would just like to apologize to the council for not bringing the schedule change, to be frank. It was one of those things that was going into the 12th hour and then late December trying to negotiate it and get it through. And to be honest with you, I left on vacation 3 days before it was actually worked out. My staff continued to work on it, and that's my fault because I didn't bring that to you. I should have notified you. So I'll take the heat for that, and I apologize to you, Alderman McMiniman. We'll try to see that doesn't happen again in the future.
Good. Noted, Chief. Thank you. Yes, Alderwoman Conley.
Thank you. Chief, if you could just real quickly, one of the things I try to encourage people in my ward to do is register their Ring doorbells with the police department. I was just wondering, could you give us just a real quick, if you've got it, update on what sort of enrollment you've got and if you're finding that to be useful?
We do find it to be useful. I don't have those numbers, but I can get them for you for next week. It's not nearly as many as we would hope were out there because a lot of times we're still going door to door looking, and people are willing to share with it, but they just don't know that's out there. The other thing since we got the opportunity here, is the city's alert system. I think we have about 5,000 people that are signed up for that citywide. That's just a small portion of our community, but we put stuff out there such as, every department uses it. So road closures, like the 5th Street closure right now, that's kind of inconveniencing people. But we also put it out there when we're looking for missing persons, or if there's an active shooter, we would use it, like during the Bun incident, or if there's something else that's going on that needs the community to know about. That's the easiest way for us to get information out. It goes straight to your cell phone via text alert. So you can go to the city's website and sign up for that as well. If we could get that participation up as well. But you are correct. I will get you those numbers, but we just got to continue to work on that and get that message out there. We're going to try to rerun that on social media to kind of get people and make that an emphasis as we move forward. Because those Ring doorbells, they're huge. Regular camera surveillance, they're good. And they're good quality nowadays. Cameras have come a long, long ways. They're good. And so that helps us put us somewhere, in a better way. And it's a very valuable tool out there.
Chief, we'd appreciate that update. And as you've done in the past on this and other issues, you've worked with Julia forever on putting together something that we can all post and just keep that in mind. I know you will. And thank you again very much.
Thank you.
Okay, on that note, Tom and Tony have asked us to take a 2-minute break. Let's take actually a 4-minute break, and that way it allow us to do some other things as well, and we'll see you all back in a few minutes. Thank you.